LSO, and I got a lot of positive feedback from our members about feeling looped into the process and the discussions that we have at our board. This is a member-driven organization, so your input is important to us. What we're presenting here is really the culmination of things that we've learned over the last few years as we've evolved as an organization, as we have implemented our original strategy from 2 years ago. And we're really looking for your feedback and comments, and that's why we've developed, after my presentation, we're having a panel of our board members. Unfortunately, we had originally 5 board members. We're down to 3. They're dropping like flies. Matt Buis, unfortunately, is ill with bronchitis. I spoke with him on the phone. He sounds really, really bad, so I believe he's genuinely sick. But he's on the mend. And Jason Lachlan from Barbardier got called into a meeting with a federal minister this morning. So it's legitimate excuses for not being here. But we're really happy to have our other board members, Alison Simonton, John Kelly, and Pat Van Gelder here, who can certainly speak to all the areas that we were going to cover off. So with that, I'm going to start and tell you a little bit about LSO and our strategic direction for 2014. So first of all, how did we start this process of strategic planning? This was something that Paul Lucas, our president and chair, him and I have been talking about since he joined our board last year. We did have a strategic plan in place that I had developed early on, and we were probably about 1.5 years into that 3-year plan. Usually that's a good time to kind of take stock of where you're at in the evolution of your strategy and see if you need to make adjustments. And that's exactly what we did. So we took a look at what we have done to date, and really we did it from an approach that we were going to clear the decks. Let's look at the organization right from core principles. Let's see if we are delivering on those and adding value for our members, and set goals going into 2014 and develop very specific initiatives to achieve those goals. The real key for our organization is focus and prioritization. We have very limited resources. We're not-for-profit. We're fully member-funded, which means that all the dues you guys pay, that's what we run off of, and the generosity of our sponsors. So we really do have to be very focused in how we utilize and mobilize those resources. We're very fortunate to have a great group of volunteers at LSO that help us deliver on a lot of these objectives and make our organization function as one that is bigger than what we would appear. So if you recall back, some of you may have been present 2 years ago at the presentation I gave in January 2 years ago, where we detailed a roadmap on our strategic priorities at that time. And we've done pretty well on delivering on all aspects of that strategy. There are areas where we have improved, but need continual improvement. Specifically, the 3 areas I've highlighted in red. This concept of improved communications is critical to LSO. There's a lot of things that we're doing that aren't necessarily reaching our membership and all of our stakeholders. We're a provincial organization. It's challenging because we represent a really diverse group of stakeholders across life sciences and geographically as well. So we have to ensure that our information is being disseminated across the province and across all segments. So that's something that we want to focus on going forward. This idea of a unified voice really is the foundation on which our organization is based. And we've made great strides. Over the last 2 years, we've grown our membership by about 15% each year. We have more corporate members than we ever have. We are very well represented across various segments, but we still have a ways to go. Our organization was originally Toronto-based in the human health sciences. That's where we have our roots. That's the foundation on which the organization is built. But obviously now we have expanded and grown our mandate, and we need to grow our representation. And the third area is a working partnership with government. Again, we've made great strides. When I joined LSO, we had a grant with the province performance that we delivered all aspects on time, within budget. We continue to work very closely with both the Ministry of Research and Innovation and the Ministry of Economic Development, as well as Ministry of Health and Ministry of Ag and Food. So we're continuing to build those relationships, but we really want to be embedded in their decision making, in their policy making, and work hand in hand with them to build Ontario's life sciences cluster. So the first thing we did when we met back in October, the board, was we took a look at our vision and mission statements. They'd been around for some time, and one of the things that I found was that they're pretty wordy. Usually vision and mission statements are pretty snappy and get the message of who you are and what you do across very succinctly. So this was our old mission statement. I'm not going to read it, I'll read it. So, and this was the old mission statement. Yeah, that was my reaction too. So we've changed those, and essentially what we're saying, we've kept this catchphrase of diversity of members, unity of voice, because it's really succinct and it really tells what we're about. Our vision is a vibrant life sciences sector in Ontario that speaks with a unified voice to create an environment that fosters collaboration, innovation, and commercial success. Those words were very carefully chosen and debated around our board table, and we feel that they convey what we aspire to be as a cluster in Ontario. And how we're getting there, of course, is through our activities, advocacy, education, and the promotion and raising awareness of the industry locally, nationally, and internationally. And new this year that we've added is a set of values. We again really felt that this was important at our board to say these are the things that we value as an organization, that we value as a cluster. We value collaboration. That's very important. We feel that our cluster, the diversity within our cluster, it's very easy to have fragmentation, and we need to strive to be more cohesive and aligned and work together. And that's to the second point of having the aligned, unified voice. There's also a lot of emphasis on science and evidence-based decisions, and we've seen at the federal level that isn't always the case. And that's a trend that is very disturbing, and we want to make sure that we reinforce that at the provincial level. Inclusivity, consultation, and consensus. We're not an organization that acts unilaterally. We value, again, our members, the input that we have from our stakeholders, and we want to drive forward the needs and the representation within the industry. And then finally, we value equally the social and economic benefits. This is really important because a lot of economic sectors talk about jobs and investments. Life sciences, we don't build cars, we don't build video games. We build and create intellectual property, therapeutics that save lives, the food that feeds a growing global population, new alternative, sustainable, clean energies and technologies. We feel that we have a lot in terms of the value and the quality that we're producing of our products and intellectual property to the social fabric of Ontario and Canada. And we need to have an emphasis and value on that. So this graphic is actually taken from a report by Biotown Canada that was sponsored, and we're using this with their permission. I thought it was a great image that captures how we view the life sciences space and all aspects of life sciences that include human health, agri-food technology, industrial biotech. So we were using this to clarify how we define the life sciences space. One of the things I talked about in our previous strategy was core competencies and what we focus on as an organization. So I've talked about advocacy, education, and networking, which is actually very important and key. Events such as these, we see a lot of value for our members in connecting people from the diverse life sciences space and facilitating those relationships and those new partnerships that might not exist otherwise. Economic development, marketing and promotion, a great example of that is the Bio Conference, which we've been involved with the past 2 years, and we hope to be involved with the province again in a major way in 2014. 2014. And then again, our mentorship programs, and I'm sure all of you have met Doreen D'Souza, who co-chairs our mentorship committee, along with Pat Van Gelder, who's going to be sitting on the panel later today. Mentorship is becoming increasingly important. We have, youth unemployment is becoming a big issue. Empirically, I get a lot of calls from new science graduates looking for jobs and asking for advice, and we try to help them through our mentorship programs to create networks, opportunities, and look at different career paths available to them. But we need to do more. There's a 2011 StatsCan stat that I found that showed that graduates in Ontario from areas of STEM, and these are recent graduates within the first few years, you get selected by age. The unemployment rate was close to 20%. That's 1 in 5 of our science, technology, and engineering graduates that are having trouble finding jobs. So that's a disturbing trend, and that's something that we seek to address. Part of that mentorship program as well is an entrepreneurs peer-to-peer roundtable series that we've started specifically for life sciences. And again, it's trying to facilitate entrepreneurs to come together to share their experiences and their opportunities for partnership to achieve success and create jobs within the life sciences sector. These are a few of our members. There's probably a few missing actually, because we've had quite a few new organizations join us in 2014, which I take as a very strong indication that we're on the right track. But it really shows that LSO is a diverse organization representing not just companies, but individuals. We have a number of partners from other not-for-profit organizations and associations, municipal governments, students, academic institutions, and public research institutions. So we really are a diverse organization. I think that we're unique in that aspect, and we're going to continue to harness this representation of the industry to drive forward our mandate. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of the presentation, which is really our strategies going forward into 2014. So when our board of directors met in October, we basically locked ourselves in a room for about half a day and had a very, I'll say it was a robust conversation, and it was great. It was very lively, a lot of ideas thrown on the table, probably too many ideas, in fact, and it was really difficult to narrow down, but it became very clear after a few hours of discussion where we wanted to head as an organization. So these 3 strategies were ones that rose to the top. Number 1 really is advocacy, right? We want to position life sciences, as I mentioned, as a strategic sector for economic growth and social benefits, and so we want to drive that mandate forward. We want to continue to do what we've been doing that has made us successful as an organization, and that's deliver these types of educational and networking opportunities for our membership. And third, which is very important for us as an organization, is to continue to represent and promote Ontario's diverse life sciences sector in a sustainable manner. I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that we are fully member funded. So sustainability is a key issue. We rely sometimes on a few key sponsors with deep pockets. We need to diversify our revenue resources. We've started that process, and we continue to do that. We run a very tight budget, and we're trying to build in some more buffers for that. So we need to continue to do what we're doing in a sustainable manner. And I'll talk a little bit further about that. So within each of these strategies, there were a lot of initiatives and plans and ideas that we discussed around the board table. And the ones that came out on top in terms of our advocacy was really demonstrating that Life Sciences Ontario should be a thought leader within the areas of advocacy. And so that is something that we're working with our partners to do. And we need to develop a set of robust policy recommendations and leverage this concept of a unified voice through the endorsements of our members and our partners to drive these forward. And I'll tell you a little bit about some specific examples of that later on in the presentation. And then, of course, we need to strengthen that relationship with government. The ones that aren't highlighted, it's not to say that they're not important. Again, we're limited resources, so we have to select things that we can do and prioritize. But everything listed on this page are things that we intend to do that are important to us. And the Ontario-Quebec Life Sciences Corridor has been a success for us. We recently have worked with the Ontario Centres of Excellence and CQDM on a joint funding program. So we continue to develop that relationship and the successes there. And then another piece was around an idea of engaging the public and raising awareness in terms of the general population around the importance of the social and economic benefits of the sector. A lot of this slide in terms of the education and network and professional development are things that we have historically done that we want to continue to do. But really the emphasis here is on continuous improvements. There are always things that we can do better, and in everything that we do, whether it's these events, the breakfast meetings, our gala dinner, our fall event, our committees and organizing committees always have debriefs afterwards. We always do surveys of our members and our participants and look at ways that we can improve and deliver value for our members. Another thing we want to do more of is engage CEOs. CEOs, it's hard to get their attention. They're busy folks, but it's important because they're the leaders within our industry. So we're seeking ways in which we can better engage the CEOs of small and large corporations and the various institutes within the province and nationally to contribute to the development of these ideas and concepts and advocacy and programs. So one of the things that we're looking at this year is a CEO advisory board where we can have a suite of CEOs that we can call on for advice and support and endorsement. And then one of the things I talked about at the beginning was this concept of expanding communications. Now, the technology exists and we need to leverage it. We've talked about it, we've made progress, certainly with our new website and several of our social media platforms. They continue to grow. Our Twitter is rapidly increasing our Twitter following thanks to some of our volunteers. I see Christine sitting over there in the audience who's been great at moving that forward, and Brian in our office has certainly been very active in these social media spaces. So we want to continue to leverage that. And then, of course, we need to grow through our partners. We have a lot of regional partners, and we need to leverage those partnerships to continue to develop into these various regions. And then the third one is it's a more internally focused than externally focused. This was the idea about sustainability. We have increased our membership and representation over the last 2 years. We need to continue to do so. We need to engage our members more, and that's not just a sustainability issue, but that goes to all the other aspects, whether it's advocacy or the networking and partnership. And then, of course, we need to diversify our sources of revenue, and that includes government grants and project-based funding, which we have done in past, and I think we need to get back to doing that. We have implemented some co-membership plans with other associations. Some of you might be aware we recently did one with RX&D. If you're not, all the information is available on our website. But basically, it's targeted at small and medium enterprises that would probably have a difficult time affording an RX&D membership. And for a 20% premium on their LSO membership, they can get an affiliate membership at RX&D and connect with the big pharma companies. So it's an area where we see a lot of value for our small and medium size enterprises. And we're going to be looking to do those types of partnerships with other associations as well. We basically run as an organization a zero budget, meaning that we don't make any profits on that, and we spend every dollar we bring in to deliver our programs. That's great, but it doesn't leave us a lot of wiggle room for rainy days. So one of the things that we want to do from a practical standpoint is build up some cash reserves so that we have a little bit lengthier buffer zone in terms of our operations from year to year. We are on a calendar year basis, so we're right in the midst of our membership renewals right now. So if you haven't renewed your membership, do so please. And we're going to make sure that we're on fiscal sound footing as we go forward. We're in pretty good shape these days. It's the 2 years that I've been here. As I said, the revenues of membership continue to increase. But again, I think we can always be better, and the more resources that we have, the more we can do with those resources. And then, of course, succession planning, both for the management and the board of directors is important. We have a long-term vision for this organization, for this sector. Much like the development of life sciences technology, it takes many years and a lot of money. We see the sector as the same way. So we have to take that long-term vision. So a few initiatives that are already underway that are linked to some of these strategies. The first one I want to mention to you is a life sciences benchmarking report. There's a lot of difficulty in the availability of data within this sector, and it's something that I struggled with back when I was working with the Ministry of Economic Development and Trade. The way the province defines life sciences is very narrow, focused only on human health technologies, and that really just isn't aligned with how other jurisdictions view the sector. The Bioindustrial Organization in the US, we had Sarah Radcliffe, their VP of Health, at our fall event in December, and very clearly they view the life sciences and the biotechnology industry in the same way that we do, which includes areas of human health, agri-food, and industrial biotechnology. And they have a paper that they publish, which is a benchmarking study of all states within the life sciences and provides statistical data on all states. And it's called the Battelle Bio Report. And the methodology is very clearly laid out. It uses NAICS codes, which aren't the best for defining the sector, but they've done a good job in carving out what they feel is representative. And given that NAICS codes are available and reproducible on a year-over-year basis, at a very minimum, it will allow us to compare apples to apples with other North American jurisdictions, and we'll be able to track trends on a year-over-year basis. So that's the methodology we're looking at doing, and we've already engaged with a partner, actually who I'm meeting with later this afternoon, and we want to get the ball rolling on this initiative. The second thing that we're working on is, in my mind, I think it's one of the most important things we've done. And this is a concept of life sciences vision paper. I actually probably should say a common vision paper. Some of you may know that the Ontario Chamber of Commerce is hosting a life sciences roundtable. They're targeting senior leaders within the life sciences community. I think it's going to be about 50 people around the table at the event, and it's going to be the first week of February. And what we're trying to achieve at that roundtable is really to bring the industry players together. We all know what the issues are, so we don't want to rehash, go through that. We know what the issues are. What we really need to do is come to a common agreement on articulating those in a clear fashion. What can we do about them? Get it on paper, get the endorsement of the sector, not just LSO. This is a sector initiative. That's why Ontario Chamber of Commerce is leading it. We're supporting them in this. And our hope is at the end of the day, we will have a very succinct white paper that clearly articulates our common vision as a sector and have the endorsement of the sector. So that's a very important outcome from us, to show that our industry is cohesive and aligned around a common vision. And I think it will form the basis of a strong advocacy position for all players in Ontario. So this isn't just, again, an LSO initiative. It's something that will benefit anybody that works in the areas of advocacy. And then finally, the enhanced communications platform. And again, this is something that's really important to us as an organization, and it's it's reaching out across Ontario and across segments. It's something that requires resources that we currently don't have, but we are working on seeing if we can develop them. So that's something that we're going to continue to evolve over the course of 2014. On the benchmarking study, I mentioned Battelle Bio. This is just some quick data to show you how Ontario views the life sciences sector from a human health perspective versus the Battelle Bio report. And so we need to broaden our definition so that we can compare apples to apples. Again, the common vision I talked about in terms of what we're trying to accomplish there, so I can spend time on that. And the enhanced marketing communications. Really, we're very GTA-centric. That's because of the way our organization has evolved, but that needs to change. We are a provincial organization. We have been for the last 3 years. We have made strides in this regard, but we will continue to make that outreach and leverage technology platforms. So, in summary, advocacy is key, and leveraging that concept of unified voice and bringing alignment and cohesion within the sector. It's a challenge, and there's a lot of diversity in the space in terms of representation, but we see a lot of benefit in this for everyone. Expanding our presence across the province, and again, diversifying our revenues for long-term sustainability. But at the end of the day, it's our members that pay the bills. Our members come first, and in the panel today that we're going to have, we want to hear from you. It's going to be an open discussion, and so we are your opportunity to ask questions and provide comments. So with that, I'm going to finish off, and I'm going to introduce our panel members, and John Kelly, and Pat Van Gelder, and Alison Summit. If you could please come up to the stage and join us, and we'll open it up for questions from the audience. So far. I know. Did I put them all to sleep? There's more coffee if anybody needs. So questions from the audience. I'll start off. I have my own questions here that I can start the panel off on, but if anybody has a burning question. Andrew, I could always count it.
Can you comment on how LSO sees its role interacting with this new OHIC?
That's a good question. Does anybody from the panel want to answer that, or do you want to take a shot at it? Yeah. Oh, sorry. The question was, how is LSO going to be interacting as an organization with the new Ontario Health Innovation Council, OHIC? Anybody want to take a crack at it, or do you want me to?
I think you.
Yeah. Okay. So we know some of the players on the Ontario Health Innovation Council. We work closely with many of them. The indication in our conversations with folks involved is that it's one of those things, whenever the government puts together a task force like this, there's a lot of potential. It's whether that potential is going to be realized. There's a lot of optimism around this. They think it's headed in the right direction. So we are optimistic at this stage, but we want to see what evolves out of it. My sense is that they have some of the right players around the table, in particularly the person leading that, the CEO of Southlake, has a history of innovation. The hospital is very innovative. So we are cautiously optimistic on the outcome, and we will interact with OHIC in terms of supporting the adoption of innovation of health technologies within the system. So in terms of our advocacy, certainly we are aligned and supportive of their mandate, but we'll reserve judgment until we see what they do.
Jason, can I just add to that? I think it's a bigger picture than just interacting with the Ontario Health Innovation Council, because it moves across ministries, and so LSO has a bigger advocacy role about generating innovation or allowing innovation to foster in the whole space, of which health is one. So I think it's important to work with the Health Innovation Council, but there's also other innovations. And there's also innovations that have not yet reached the Health Innovation Council, so it's that whole continuum that LSO needs to work on. But it is important to make sure that we're connected with all of these new initiatives so that we can help, as well as they come back for advice. They're still at the point where they're going to be molding what they're doing as well. So I think if they see LSO and the membership as people they want to come back for to get feedback from, that's an important piece too.
Other questions? Oh, we got a mic. Good.
Does it work? Oh, it does. We've talked in the past about Ontario being highly fractionated with different associations and leads for confusion out there. So I was very glad to see your emphasis on increasing membership. I think that needs to be emphasized. I think it, as a suggestion, and maybe you can embellish this, it behooves each of us, each member here, to go out and get more members. 15% is good, but it's not good enough. And I think it needs greater emphasis. So some inspiration, challenges to members to bring in other members is critical.
Absolutely, and thank you for saying that. I didn't pay him to say that, honestly. Rick, that's a great point, and we rely on our members to do that. Like I talked a little bit about the value our volunteers bring to our organization, and they're volunteering their time. They're not receiving any remuneration for this, and because they see value in what we do and they believe in what we're doing and the approach and the way in which we're doing it. That's another reason why we added those value statements to what we're doing. So, empowering